1934 was a pretty good year for Byrd. He went ahead and he raced in this competition called the 100-mile Ascot race. It was, I guess, a speedway bike, and they had these extra large gas tanks, probably had gas tanks mounted on their backs, and they would race 100 miles on a speedway bike. Can you imagine racing a speedway bike for 100 miles? I mean, my ass is sore after 4 laps, and I bet his ass was really sore after 100 miles. Anyways, Byrd won that 100-mile race, and I'm sure that a lot of guys didn't want to blow up their engines and, mess their bikes up, burning 100 miles on a speedway bike.
Cool.
The following year, in 1935, they had a United States Speedway Nationals at the Fresno State College Speedway Stadium, probably where they play football. And I'm sure Sprouse Elder promoted that because Sprouse Elder lived in Fresno, California. He promoted the races in Fresno. So I'll bet you that Sprouse was the promoter of that event. However, Byrd went ahead and finished 3rd place again. He went ahead and got 3rd place. He tied for 3rd place with Pete Coleman, and they just didn't have a runoff. They said, "Oh, go ahead, you're 3rd place." Also, 2nd place had a tie. They just went ahead and just said, just go ahead and keep the tie. But these days, if there's a tie in a national championship, they definitely will have a runoff to have a definite 2nd or 3rd place finisher. But he got back-to-back podiums, 34 and 35, on the United States National Championship. Byrd Mckinney was a high flyer. The following year in 36, Byrd said, enough of that speedway in America. Let's go to Europe and let's try our luck. There was this racing team called the Putt Mossman team. They traveled all over the place. They went to Australia, Japan, all over England. I guess it was a traveling team trying to promote the racers. And Byrd was on that team, and he went ahead and showed his skills. Byrd was a really good rider. He wasn't a top-tier, top-level rider, a world championship rider, but Byrd was a top-level rider. And the following year, in 37, Wimbledon, they went ahead and they signed Byrd for that year as a speedway rider. So Byrd Mckinney was a British League speedway rider. Also, during that time period of 36 and 37, Byrd was asked to race for the team match race, the test race championship over in Australia. They went to the land down under. Women grow in men thunder. However, the Americans did not thunder. The Australians, they thundered down under. And they beat the Americans 3 straight. And Byrd had an average of 4 points. It was the middle of the pack. And they just got beat. Jack Milne got the top point getter. And he did really well. But all the other Americans didn't do so well. And Byrd even beat Cordy Milne in the points in that test match by 1 point. Like I say, the Australians kicked the Yankees' ass in Australia. 1938 was a quiet year for Byrd. However, in 39, the World War II broke up. And Hitler was invading, and the speedway stopped. Everything stopped. And Byrd went ahead and applied for the military, in the Army. He was a Tech 4 officer, and he proudly represented the United States as an officer to defeat the Germans. In the 1940s, Byrd came back to America. He was in America after the war, and he never went back to England as far as we know. He just raced in those local tracks that were sponsored by Jack Milne, Cordy Milne, Lammy Lameraw, and he went ahead and was just one of those racers. He wasn't a top-tier racer, and he wasn't a bottom racer. He just was a little bit below the top.